You think your carry-on's safe because it always fit before? You're wrong, and airlines are quietly watching your bag more closely than ever. For years, most travelers rolled past the gate without a second thought. If it made it through security, it made it onto the plane. Simple. But recently, something feels different. Gate agents are pausing longer. Their eyes linger on wheels and handles. Some bags are being pulled aside without much explanation. And the worst part? The official size limits haven't dramatically changed, which makes this even more confusing. Because when enforcement tightens without a loud announcement, people get caught off guard. And at the gate, caught off guard usually means paying for it. There was a time when carry-ons were almost a free pass. If your bag looked close enough to the limit, no one said anything. If it bulged a little from overpacking, you just pushed it into the overhead bin and hoped for the best. And most of the time, it worked. Travelers got used to that rhythm. Roll through security, scan the boarding pass, walk straight onto the plane. No measuring, no second look. Over time, that became the expectation. Frequent flyers started buying bags slightly bigger than the official limit because they never check. Weekend travelers stuffed jackets into side pockets because it always fits. Even first-time flyers heard the same advice: don't worry about it. And for years, that advice wasn't completely wrong. Enforcement felt inconsistent. Some gates had metal sizers collecting dust. Others never used them at all. So people assumed the system was relaxed, maybe even indifferent. That assumption became routine, but something changed, and most travelers didn't notice. Here's what makes this so frustrating. The actual size limits haven't dramatically changed. Most major US airlines still stick close to the familiar 22 by 14 by 9 inches. And yes, that includes the wheels and handles. On paper, it looks exactly the same as it did years ago, so travelers assume nothing's different. But the shift isn't in the numbers, it's in the enforcement. Airlines aren't relying on close enough anymore. Gate agents are paying attention. They're watching how bags roll down the jet bridge. They're noticing when a suitcase looks overstuffed. And when they decide it doesn't comply, it's no longer a friendly suggestion. It becomes a mandatory gate check, often with a fee attached. That's where the shock hits. You followed the same routine, used the same bag, packed the same way, and suddenly you're being told it doesn't qualify. It feels random. It feels unfair. And because no major rule announcement happened, most passengers never saw it coming. So why are gate agents suddenly measuring bags again? Here's where it gets even more confusing. Some airlines have actually started removing the metal bag sizers from the gate area. No more obvious steel frame sitting there like a warning sign. On the surface, that feels like good news. No measuring box in sight? Maybe they've relaxed, but that assumption is exactly the trap. The disappearance of the metal sizer doesn't mean the rule disappeared. It just means the measuring moment moved. Instead of forcing every passenger to physically test their bag in a frame, enforcement is becoming more selective and more personal. Now it's visual screening. It's judgment calls. It's digital prompts tied to your boarding scan. If your bag looks questionable, you're the one being stopped, not the entire boarding group. And without that visible measuring tool, people let their guard down. They assume if there's no box, there's no risk. That's not a loophole. It's a quieter system. And this is where most travelers get caught. Now, there's no metal frame to argue with. Instead, there's a person. Gate agents are increasingly relying on visual judgment rather than forcing every bag into a rigid box. If it looks oversized, bulky, or difficult to fit, they can stop you right there. And while many airlines say agents are encouraged to err on the side of the customer, that guidance leaves a lot of room for interpretation. And interpretation changes everything. One agent may wave you through because your bag seems close enough. Another might look at the same suitcase and decide it needs to be checked immediately. Same dimensions, same flight type, completely different outcome. That unpredictability creates anxiety at the gate. You can't prepare for a measurement you can see. You can't test your bag against a standard that isn't physically there. You're relying on someone else's split-second judgment. And when that judgment goes against you, the decision is usually final. But that's not what actually causes most people to lose money. What most travelers don't realize is that the decision isn't always made by eye anymore. It's made by a screen. Many airlines now tie your boarding pass to your baggage allowance in their system. Your fare type, loyalty status, upgrades, it's all linked. So when your boarding pass is scanned, the gate agent isn't just seeing your seat number. They're seeing how many items you're supposed to bring on board. If you booked a basic fare that only allows one personal item, the system already knows. If you prepaid for a carry-on, that's logged too. And if you show up with more than you're entitled to, the tablet doesn't ignore it. It flags it. That's why some travelers are being stopped instantly before they even reach the jet bridge. It's not random. It's data. And when technology quietly reinforces policy, there's less flexibility. The agent can't pretend not to notice. The screen already did, and the consequences hit faster than you think. The real shock doesn't happen at security. It happens at the gate. You make it through TSA without a problem. Your bag fits on the X-ray belt. No one says a word, so you assume you're in the clear. But security screening and airline size enforcement are two completely different systems, and they don't protect you from each other. Then, just as boarding starts, your name is called or your bag is stopped. Suddenly you're told it has to be checked. Not later, not optional, right now. And if your ticket doesn't include a carry-on, that last-minute check can come with a fee that's higher than what you would have paid online. That's the sting. Even frequent flyers are being caught off guard. Same suitcase, same route, same airline. But this time, enforcement is tighter, and loyalty doesn't always override policy. In that moment, arguing rarely works. Boarding is moving, the line is building. You either pay or risk missing the flight. And most travelers don't see this trap coming. This is where things start to feel petty. It's not just your carry-on anymore, it's your personal item. And airlines are paying much closer attention to what that actually means. For years, travelers stretched the definition: a backpack plus a tote, a purse plus a shopping bag from the airport store, a laptop sleeve tucked under your arm. If it didn't look huge, most agents ignored it. That window is closing. Now if it's visible, it's counted. If you're holding it, it counts. If it's hanging off your shoulder, it still counts. Agents are watching for the extra strap, the extra handle, the extra item that pushes you beyond your allowance. And because personal item rules vary slightly between airlines and fare types, confusion is everywhere. Some passengers genuinely believe they're compliant until they're told to consolidate or check something immediately. It feels minor, it feels unnecessary, but it's being enforced more consistently than before. And when you're juggling items at the boarding line, trying to merge bags under pressure, stress builds fast. But that's not the worst part. Here's something most people never consider. It's not just about the size of your bag, it's about when you show up. If you're one of the first to board, your bag might get more scrutiny. Agents aren't under pressure yet. Overhead bins are still empty. There's time to pause, look closely, and decide whether your suitcase really meets the limit. But if you arrive late, especially during final boarding, everything shifts. The priority becomes speed. Close the door. Push back on time. In that rush, some borderline bags slide through simply because there's no time to debate. Travelers have noticed this inconsistency. Many report being waved through on one flight and stopped on another with the exact same bag. Same airline, same dimensions, different timing. That unpredictability creates tension. You can't prepare for a measurement you can see. Your boarding group, the pace of the line, even how full the flight is, all of it can influence whether someone takes a second look at your luggage. And when it's really full on board. When the flight is full, everything changes. Even if your bag technically meets the size limit, overhead bin space isn't guaranteed. Airlines sell more seats, planes are fuller, and once those bins start filling up, the math turns against you. If your suitcase takes up more space than average, even slightly, it becomes a problem. If it doesn't slide in smoothly, if it has to be turned sideways, if it blocks another passenger's bag, that's when agents step in. And suddenly, your perfectly legal carry-on is tagged for gate check. At that point, the decision moves fast. A tag is printed. It's attached. Your bag disappears down the jet bridge. You don't get time to reorganize. You don't get to remove valuables unless you react immediately. And once it's tagged, you've lost control. It's now in the baggage system, subject to delays, tight connections, and the same risks as checked luggage. You followed the rules, but space pressure overrides compliance. And this is the uncomfortable truth most travel guides never tell you. At some point, you realize something uncomfortable. This isn't really about your bag. It's about time. Airlines are under constant pressure to board faster, reduce delays, and keep planes moving. Every extra minute at the gate costs money. Every argument over a suitcase slows the process down. So enforcement isn't tightening because someone suddenly cares more about your wheels being half an inch too wide. It's about efficiency. If agents can quickly identify oversized bags before they clog the aisle, boarding moves smoother. If digital systems flag passengers who exceed their allowance, there's less debate. Fewer surprises inside the cabin. Fewer bottlenecks near row 18 while someone tries to force a bag into a full bin. From an operational perspective, it makes sense. Standardize, enforce early, avoid chaos on board. But when efficiency becomes the priority, flexibility shrinks. And when flexibility shrinks, passengers feel it first, especially at the gate. Because even if it's not personal, it still affects you. But for you, that still means consequences. Here's the hard lesson most travelers learn too late. The written rules didn't dramatically change. The enforcement did. And that shift is subtle enough to catch experienced flyers off guard. What worked last year might not work now. The same suitcase, the same packing habit, the same airline, different outcome. Relying on past experience in this environment can cost you money, time, and unnecessary stress right at the gate. Because when you step into that boarding line, the only thing that matters is what the agent sees and what their system shows. Not what happened on your last trip. Airlines might remove measuring tools from the gate area, but that doesn't take away their authority or your risk.